we've got some. There's the man.
Oh, darn. I had one, but I didn't know if it was charged.
This McDorset Park thing, they're just going to have the...
It's
All
not
right.
working.
I think
Well, welcome. Being a couple minutes after 6, sorry for the late start, but we'll start the September 19th version of Soquel Creek Water District Board meeting. Roll call will show that Director Daniels is not here tonight, but the other 4 of us are. There's no public hearing. And so the first item on tonight's agenda is the consent agenda. So are there any items that anybody wishes to take off of consent?
Oh, yeah, I'll take off 3.1.1. I wasn't at the meeting, so.
Okay.
Minutes.
Well, we probably better do both minutes off because I think you weren't here for September 5th. So, so we'll take the minutes off. Anything else?
No.
Okay.
public comment.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to say. So if there's anyone that wishes to speak on any of the consent agenda items, now would be the time. So seeing none, we'll I'll entertain a motion for it.
I'll move the consented items other than the ones taken off.
Okay,
I'll second.
moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, now we'll go to the meeting minutes, which I think we just had different directors here. So on the first set of minutes from August 15th.
I'll move approval.
Okay, I'll second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And an abstention?
Abstention.
Abstention.
Okay. And then the September 5th meeting, any,
Oh, I'll move approval.
Okay.
I reviewed them.
okay.
I'll second.
Okay, been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And one abstention. Okay. Good deal. So now we will move on to oral communications. So this would be the time for anyone to speak on an item not on tonight's agenda. So please come to the podium.
Thank you. Good evening. Becky Steinbrunner. I want to confirm there will be public comment allowed at the end of the meeting for written correspondence. It got cut off last time.
Yes, I'm sorry, we've never done that we really haven't had anybody speaking on written communications usually, so it's kind of over the years I'm not used to that, but yeah, I'll make sure there's an opportunity.
Okay, thank you. I want to, because it's not on the agenda, I want to talk about the Pure Water Soquel environmental review that's going on right now. And in thinking about it, the Chanticleer site that's being considered is not in your service district boundaries. And I am curious how that would work if you would have to get approval with LAFCO. I did ask Mr. McCormick with LAFCO, and he said I should ask you. So I understand you can't really answer that question because it's not on the agenda, but it is an issue that I think needs to be discussed publicly, especially with what I see in the communication as some resistance from the property owners at the proposed Chanticleer site. And again, I want to urge you to not allow further hookups. I think we're in a very desperate situation with critical overdraft, and it's difficult to sit and watch more hookups being allowed at overdraft. And even though this situation has improved due to conservation and maybe a little bit of the rain, but I want to urge you to consider again declaring a moratorium on new service connections. Thank you.
Thank you. Just for clarification, no development happens without offsetting the projected water use. Anyone else wish to speak to the board on item not on tonight's agenda?
Hi, Gary Lindstrom, Aptos, California. I have one item I would like to clear up and get a definite answer to. A public record request was made to the Soquel Creek Water District regarding the water offsets for Swenson Builders and the Aptos Village project. No definitive answer was given. So we have a non-answer in one hand, and in the other, a statement you made on August 15th, 2017, stating you specifically had records regarding the water offsets. Which is it? Either we have them or we don't. If you don't have the records, then we just want to know where they are, because nobody else has them. So, and if you do have them, we would just like to see them, that's all.
So, are you done?
Yeah.
Okay, so I will answer that yes, there's records for all the offsets that have been made, and public records requests have been made, and that's it. There's nothing else to it. There are records, and they are there.
Then why weren't they given to us?
That's it.
All the
Why weren't they-
records were furnished.
Pardon?
All the records were furnished multiple times. There's
Okay.
been 2 or 3 requests.
So they
at
have
least, and
been-
in each case, records were furnished.
It's kind of an old issue. It's been taken care of. I mean, they've been provided. Okay, anyone else? All right, and directors? Any oral communications on items not on tonight's agenda?
Nope.
Carla, maybe?
No, well, no, I don't. I just got back from Hawaii, and yeah, just to show you the tenuousness of what can happen in water supply. While I was there, the wells in Kona, South Kona, 2 out of 3 wells drawing groundwater under a gigantic aquifer. There's plenty of water beneath these many volcanoes on this huge island. However, their technology and their engineering is either getting old or they hire the same contractor, I don't know. But 2 out of 3 of the wells in Kona malfunction. They're still a couple weeks old of malfunctioning now. And then similar up in the northern part of the county and part of the island in Kohala, and there's plenty of rain there, but they have no water because these wells, the well pumps failed and they don't know how to fix it. So it's just they're trucking water everywhere, just trying to find it. It's a very tenuous situation for a lot of people right now. So it just reminded me how really lucky we have such a proactive engineering department here, that they, we take some of this effort for granted, but it really does make a difference.
Hey, sometimes you don't notice till something's broken.
Yes.
Right.
So,
If it's all working
Really
fine, nobody
appreciate it.
comments on it. Okay, anything else? Okay, then we'll move on to the next item, which is special board assignments calendar. So, any update on that?
There's really nothing orally to update, unless there's specific questions I could answer. This, maybe it'll go further down into the organizational-wide status reports.
Okay.
These are just things that were
Okay,
yet to be done.
right. Anyone wish to speak on this item? Okay, we'll move on.
There's one thing I would like
Yeah.
to point out,
Yes, sir.
and that's on the miscellaneous items on, I guess it's 3 or 4, that the final report for the mapping of the freshwater in the aquifer offshore is, the final report's anticipated in October and November. And that will give much-needed information on how far offshore
I know.
the seawater is.
All right. So then the next item is the board calendar. Any comments, questions?
I just want to point out that tomorrow morning at 10, between 10 and 2, we are holding the National Water Research Institute panel of experts to address water quality issues with recycled water, and that'll be in this room.
Public meeting?
It is a public meeting,
Yep.
and then I believe also on Thursday, there's the Mid-County Groundwater Agency Board meeting at 7 p.m. at the Simpkins Swim Center.
Right, and I think on the Research Institute presentation, people will be submitting questions in writing, I guess,
That's right.
so, at the meeting or
And
before.
And then
Okay.
next Monday, there's a Water Rate Advisory Committee meeting as well at our office.
All right.
That's a public meeting as well.
Any questions or any public comment on the calendar? Okay. Next then is the organization-wide abbreviated status update. Not the whole report, but the update.
Sure, I'll start with the Conservation Customer Service Field section. Were there any questions on the items that were reported?
No?
Okay.
Good.
Oh, I did have a question about that, actually, the meters. Do you have any idea any further information on that, the meter failures?
It's not the meter itself, it's the register. The register is not sending a signal in some cases to the receiver in the vehicles, and so they're having to be manually read. So we are still able to meter consumption, but it takes more staff time, and so we're trying to get a handle on that and determine the most cost-effective solution. And I think we may need to start moving towards AMI sooner than we expected, maybe within the next year or two instead of 5 years. So most of the meters and registers have been in for 10 years, 10 to 11 years, and so we're starting to see that they're outside, the registers are outside of the warranty, the 10-year warranty. So, well, the meters have a 20-year warranty. And we were trying to kind of get the most money out of the meters before we embarked on any sort of changeover to AMI, but we might not be able to stretch that, and it might be more cost-effective to just start a switch over, a phased kind of approach. So we'll be bringing back more information on that as we get more.
Okay. And then engineering.
Yeah, we wanted to report that the Clubhouse Drive main replacement is nearing completion. They've finished all the main installation, pressure tests have passed, and they're now in the phase of connecting houses over to the new main. Unfortunately, I will let Christine report that there was another main break last night on the old main in the vicinity. So it's just a 1961 infrastructure that, you know, we're trying to keep up on, and it's an ongoing effort.
Okay.
Also, I wanted to report that Director Lather and I did attend a week-long trip in Denmark, learning about the Danish water management efforts, and they're a couple decades ahead of us. And they're actually in the States this week to work with the governor of California on a very collaborative effort, signing a memorandum of understanding to provide guidance to the state as we make our way through the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act.
Great.
So that was a very intriguing. We're going to hopefully convene a brown bag, maybe for anybody who's interested, staff as well as board members, to, you know, we can share photos and presentations and highlights. Also, the water purchase from the Santa Cruz, City of Santa Cruz Water Department is making progress. Of course, we're looking to conduct a corrosion study, and as the board knows, it's going to be a phased approach, first conducting the bench scale work, and then, if needed, go forward with a full-scale pipe or a pipe loop study. That meeting is scheduled. There's a kickoff meeting scheduled for the first week of October. And the good news is that Black & Veatch has confirmed that the water quality that the city has right now is representative or more aggressive than it would be in the winter. So there's no reason to wait. We can get started right away. And so those efforts are underway. There's a couple other projects that are active. Cornwell Tank Recode is out to bid. We're opening bids tomorrow. And the Quail Run Tank we're finalizing plans for that. And then there's the Potbelly Beach main extension is about 50% through construction.
Great. Thanks, Tosh. O&M?
I was only just going to add about the main break last night. It was another late night event and lost about 140,000 gallons on a little side street there behind Clubhouse. So if you have any other questions?
Was that in the area where the new one will be replacing it?
No,
Or no, it's in another phase?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there any, like, final word on the lead study, or the lead pipe presence or absence? Did that get wrapped up?
Yeah, we had a summer intern taking over that project, and we determined we needed to further evaluate 5,400 service lines that we couldn't immediately determine if they were plastic, galvanized, or copper. So he went through our project records and narrowed that down to about 1,200 that needed to be field checked, and he got 1,000 of them done. So there's only 200 left that need to be field checked, and we actually have 3 years to do that. But no lead was identified. So it was mostly copper is what he found, and some galvanized.
No redwood?
No.
Okay.
So the lead would be in the soldering?
No, this was actually looking for lead pipe.
Okay.
So we do have, copper pipe of a certain year was made with lead solder, but with the project, it's a new regulation. We have to identify all the lead service lines in our district, or if we don't know what the service lines are made out of, then we have to either identify those definitively or replace them, and we've got 3 years to do that.
Okay, thank you. And then looks like we'll go right to finance because Melanie's not here.
Yeah, unless there's any questions about our items that I could address.
Anybody? Anybody on special projects questions? Okay, we'll go to finance.
So most specifically, I just want to point out that we did have a CD mature this month, and its yield was 1.10, and I was able to roll it into a 5-year CD that has a yield of 2.4. So we were able to almost double the yield on our rollover, and then I purchased a second CD this month as well for another 2.4. So they're both 5-year CDs, but the yield is stronger than we've seen to date.
Yeah. Great. Any questions? Okay. And then general manager's not here. I guess it's just if people had questions, you're going to field them?
I can do that. Ron did give me an update on these items. If there are any
Okay.
questions, let me know.
You want to?
We're just monitoring a proposed bill from Senator Monning, and we'll keep the board apprised of it as it comes. It's an attempt to raise some money to support some of the disadvantaged communities through water tax. So we're going to see how that unfolds.
Yeah. Okay. All right, then, is there any public comment on that item, the whole organization-wide abbreviated report?
Thank you, Becky Steinbrunner. I contacted Assemblyman Stone's office today to find out the status of SB 623. It died over the weekend in the Rules Committee because it was not addressed before the deadline. So it is not active legislation proposal now. I wanted to ask about the what I saw in the operations and maintenance, the increasing ammonia level in the O'Neill Ranch well. If there's any ideas still about what can be done to treat that, it looks like it's still going to be a problem. And regarding the finance, I know Mr. Basso didn't give a report, but regarding the finance committee, when I was here at your last meeting, Mr. Basso did make a comment that, and correct me if I'm wrong, that no flat rates are allowed under Proposition 218. So I wondered if there's any further comment. I see that rate advisory committee is going to continue to meet. So if you have any information on that, I'd be interested on flat rates and Prop 218. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I actually will ask if you can address it sounds like the question with O'Neill well, sounds like that we're still doing testing.
We are still doing testing.
We don't know what the solution is yet.
Right.
Okay, I mean, we blocked off the areas we thought were producing higher ammonia levels, and then now we're testing that.
We're waiting to see if it can stabilize.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay.
But just to clarify, so the higher ammonia levels, although we're testing, it's not going into our system.
That's not true. They are.
Okay.
Yeah, it is. We're not wasting water. It is going into our distribution system. We're not violating any MCLs. Christine can probably address that comment.
Actually, the ammonia is treated through the disinfection process.
I see.
So.
Okay, so it's removed, yeah.
It's
treated.
Yeah, it's
chemically.
removed. It's removed. It's
Okay.
the problem is we're just getting towards the upper limit of the amount of sodium hypochlorite we can add to oxidize that. So
Gotcha.
it's not entering the distribution system.
Gotcha.
Okay. Thanks. Okay, so next is District Council.
Two items. One, the Buenaventura case was argued before the Supreme Court on September 5th. That's one of the ones on Prop 218. I did listen to the oral argument. There was a lot of discussion about whether Prop 26 or Prop 218 applied, and you really couldn't tell from the questions being asked by the judges which way they were going. So we'll have to wait till we get that decision. They also made a decision in August on Prop 218, holding that if citizens bring an initiative under Prop 218 as opposed to a board of directors or legislative body doing it, that they're not subject to the same requirements, that they can actually bring a 218 rate proposal and ask for a vote as opposed to the protest requirements, which is not at the currently anything we're involved in, but it's kind of an interesting sidelight. They're broadening the initiative process over what a legislative body can do. And that's all I have to report.
Okay, thank you. MGA.
Anything you wanted to say, Taj, or say?
Well, I will highlight a few things, and you can add if you want.
Okay.
Ron did inform me that this evening, or that this week, on Thursday, the MGA board is going to consider a couple items, large contract items for the groundwater sustainability plan preparation, a contract for hydrometrics work to support preparing that plan, as well as a facilitation contract to guide that effort. I think it's a multi-year or at least a year effort. And then also tonight, you guys will be hopefully selecting a representative for the Groundwater Sustainability Plan Advisory Committee. Those are the two issues that he wanted me to address with you.
The other issue of note is that there's a opportunity to apply for a grant to offset the cost of these items that you mentioned.
Okay.
So
Good.
hopefully that will be successful.
Okay. Good. All right. Any public comment on that report? Yeah.
Thank you, Becky Steinbruner. I wonder if, because I do see that your board is in your calendar for your first October meeting, you're going to be approve the ESA scope for fiscal year 2017-2018. Is that Pure Water Soquel? And if so, then what I want to know is if the Mid-County groundwater portion will be considered in terms of a protest vote or a citizens initiative to allow your customers and the general public to vote on how the Pure Water Soquel project would dovetail into the Mid-County Groundwater Sustainable Plan. I guess that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll just comment on that, the Mid-County Groundwater Agency does not have a plan yet, and both the City of Santa Cruz and Soquel Creek Water District are moving ahead with possible solutions that could create sustainability in our groundwater. So it'll be worked out on how all this dovetails at a later date. That's not determined at this point.
Yeah. MGA, next up is develop a plan.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And then the next is of something I've been excited about for a while. So the update on the stormwater recharge project. Take it away.
Good evening, everybody. So the purpose of our memo tonight is to give the board and the public an update on the progress that we've made on identifying some sites for stormwater recharge, and to give the board an opportunity to provide feedback on the work that we've done so far and what we see as our next steps for this project. So just a refresher, when we refer to stormwater recharge, we're talking about capturing excess stormwater and diverting it in a way so that it can percolate down into the ground. This idea was added to our community water plan as a potential supplemental supply. And one thing that is worth noting is that it's expected to, if we do get a project going, it would probably be supplemental to one of these other supply options. It doesn't, as far as we know right now, have the potential to provide nearly as much water, but it still could be a piece of the puzzle. And we're also investigating it as an offset generating project for the Water Demand Offset Program. We last came to the board with an update in June, and at that time we had just really begun our investigation into the suitable sites. We'd narrowed down our search to areas south of Aptos Creek that is over the Aromas. And that was based on the Managed Aquifer Recharge study that was done by Andy Fisher's group at UCSC and the Resource Conservation District, as well as our background knowledge of the characteristics of the Aromas. And we went through this area of the district and selected sites that were district-owned, publicly owned, and were large privately owned parcels that looked like they had a potential to capture some stormwater. And so we had a list of 17 sites. So this map was the map we brought you last time with the 17 sites. And from there, we were asked to prioritize sites 1 through 10 and 16. So that's the area here. So that's in our service area 3. Service area 4 down in La Selva Beach wouldn't necessarily impact our active production wells. And so those are not being prioritized at this time. And we also added Aptos High School as a site number 18. So since the meeting, we've been working to go through each of those sites to assess it for its any fatal flaws, potential challenges for each site, the managed aquifer recharge suitability, the subsurface and surface factors, as well as the runoff potential, and have also considered what kinds of designs would be appropriate for each location. And so from that work, which we summarized in attachment 1, a few sites emerged as having a higher potential, so we're referring to them as our phase 1 sites. And that doesn't mean that the other sites could never happen. But these are just the ones that we feel that have the strongest potential for now. So we narrowed down into just a couple of sites. These are our phase 1s. This is shown in attachment 2 as well. We have Aptos High School, the Deer Park Shopping Center, and the neighboring vineyard. We're kind of just referring to that as the Deer Park area. And Rio Del Mar Elementary, and then 3 sites along Seascape Golf Course. So I'm just going to go briefly into each site and why we think that it may be promising and any big concerns that we have. This first one is Aptos High School. So there is, the school kind of sits in a bowl or a valley, so there is a lot of water that runs down these slopes down into the school and then funnels out towards Freedom. There is a large storm drain conduit that's 60 inches down at the corner of Mariner Way and Freedom. So we're confident there's a large amount of water there that could be captured. We did some digging on the detention pond that is on the campus and found that it's not currently operational. After some work was done in that area to put in a new field, it appears that some drainage was changed and that's no longer being utilized. There are some serious concerns about this site as far as its proximity to Central Water District's production wells, as well as Aptos High School's well and some privately owned wells. So that's definitely something that we need to consider and make sure everybody is okay with. But given the tremendous amount of runoff, we think that it's worth looking at. The next site is Rio Del Mar Elementary. So this site doesn't receive as much runoff, but it does get runoff from the hill that's up behind it, and then from the school. It funnels down to this southern part of the property, where there is a storm drain conduit that starts from there. There is some open space that looks suitable for this that's not used by students, and we think that a project at this school or at Aptos High could serve as an educational tool as well. We have spoken with the Director of Maintenance, Operations, and Facilities at Pajaro Valley Unified School District that is responsible for both of these schools, and so far they have been receptive to the project proposal and learning more about it. So we think that there's some good potential there. The next one is the Deer Park area. So we're considering 2 parcels at this site, the Deer Park Shopping Center and the vineyard right next door. All the water from the shopping center and from some surrounding neighbors and about half of the Rio Highlands development, which is just south of the vineyard. All that water runs down into an earth-lined channel that gets funneled out along the southern edge of the shopping center, and then it goes through the vineyard and eventually out to Valencia Creek. So there is some concern that we may have permitting issues with this site because the runoff currently flows to the creek, which has sensitive species. But we have been talking with the management at the shopping center and the vineyard owner and have received some positive feedback. So we feel that it's worth taking a look at. The next 3 sites are for the golf course. We think that the golf course is really promising in a few locations because the runoff from the surrounding neighborhoods tend to converge in a few large pipes before they cross the course. And because the course is so large, there are quite a few areas that aren't being used for their operation that we might be able to put a project. So we did meet with their general manager about some ideas that we had for the projects and received interest, especially in areas which they've indicated have problems with runoff and with ponding during big storms. So the first site is below the maintenance yard. This collects a lot of neighborhood runoff from a couple of large conduits that cross Clubhouse. There's a lot of good space here, and there would be easy access from the maintenance yard. The next one we're calling Los Altos Drive, and that's because over here, that's where Los Altos crosses the course. And so this is the first fairway here, and the general manager let us know that there is a lot of water that travels across there. And when we took a look at the storm drains and the geography, we noticed that as well. And there's a couple of spaces that might be able to accommodate dry wells and swales. Their well is quite close to this location, so that is something to be considered. But even though their well is close by, it could still be a benefit to the basin overall. The last spot is above the 14th fairway, and this spot was brought to our attention by the general manager as an area that they have chronic flooding issues. This is kind of a zoomed out map to really show you how big of an area we think that this captures. So this is actually getting water all the way up on the ridge and all the Pinehurst neighborhood. So funny enough, we noticed that this area down on the course is actually getting the eventual runoff from Rio Del Mar Elementary, the storm drain that's in the southern part of their campus. So we think there's a lot of potential here. There's clearly a lot of water that runs out of this pipe that daylights at the 14th green. It's evident because they've lined this big channel with rocks to prevent erosion. So something close by to there could be a real benefit to us and a real benefit to them. So we think that there's a lot of potential in these sites, and all of the sites, the golf course and Deer Park and the 2 schools. So we would like to carry for all of them forward to our next stage of our investigations to find out what the real world conditions are at each site, just to give us a better idea of how much water we could realistically recharge. And to help with the costs for all of these on-site tests, we're proposing partnering with the county. They are also investigating a few sites for stormwater recharge, and collaborating with them could give us a chance to get more competitive bids and cut back on staff time, and would put us in a better position to pursue grant funding. So tonight we have Sierra Ryan here, who is a water resources planner with the county. So she's going to give an overview of how we may be able to collaborate, and she's also going to go over a great opportunity we have to partner with them on a pilot of the dual EM survey in early November to kind of kick off our on-site testing.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everybody. Like Alyssa said, my name's Sierra Ryan. I've been working at the county for a couple of years now, and I'm really excited to be here tonight because I feel like what's happening now is the culmination of several years of work being done kind of simultaneously in tandem, and now we're having the opportunity to really bring it together. It's like a synergy. A little background on some of the work the county's been doing. Over the past few years, we have been investigating stormwater recharge as one of many tools in a toolbox of groundwater management and stormwater management, which is another issue that we're concerned about. We've already installed a number of recharge projects. There's 2 at Polo Grounds Park and 1 at Bromer Street Park. Together, those sites recharge about 20 acre-feet a year, probably a lot more last year. So I wanted to give a little bit of background about all of the things that have been kind of leading up into this moment, and then talk about the opportunity that we have that I'm hoping that we can jump on together. So as you're all aware of, there was the managed aquifer recharge maps that Dr. Andy Fisher put together with the UCSC and partnering with the Resource Conservation District. Those maps have been fantastic because they've helped us identify really prime areas for recharge, so that we have, it basically sets out for us where we need to start doing on-the-ground investigations. Those maps, we've met recently with Andy Fisher, staff from the district, county staff, Resource Conservation District staff, and county park staff to talk about how we can best utilize those maps and using them to identify projects. And that was kind of the cornerstone of the sites that the district has chosen, as well as some of the sites that the county has chosen. We at the county received a Prop 1 grant last year for the counties with stressed groundwater basins. It's focused on the Mid-County Groundwater Basin, and we have a task in there to identify recharge projects and funding to help us do some of the geophysical work as well as potentially preliminary design work. And so that's some of the cost sharing that Alyssa was talking about, is partnering on that grant. As you know, the district has been investigating using water demand offset funds. There's also a number of other projects happening throughout the county. There's a number of churches in the Morrissey area that have independently decided to investigate doing a mini recharge project in their own parking lot. It's 3 different churches that share kind of one large area, which we've just been in touch with them, and I think it's promising. It shows the interest the community has in this type of project as well. And then in the Pajaro Basin, they're really moving forward with this kind of at a much faster pace. They've got a number of projects in development. Some are being implemented now as we speak. And they're looking, some of their sites they're much larger scale, but they could potentially be charging hundreds of acre-feet a year in the very near future down there. So their projects, they're being designed and implemented by the Resource Conservation District, but they're being monitored by Andy Fisher's grad students at his lab, and that's fantastic because they're going to be coming out with information in the next year or two, hopefully this coming winter, that will really help us with our future project designs. I think we're going to have a lot of lessons learned from their projects that we can apply to ours. So that's another great thing. So like Alyssa said, now's a good opportunity to be looking to kind of partner on how we can leverage our funding on these projects. We all have kind of the same goals, so it's something that we've been talking about at a staff level for a long time. We've got this grant fund, and that on its own was really exciting. And then I was with Taj and Rochelle on the trip to Denmark, and I presented on our groundwater recharge projects, what we're interested in doing. We also heard a presentation from Ramble. They're part of the group that helped us with the SqCWD, the helicopter flyover, and they talked about work that they have, technology they have called this Dualium, and you can see a picture of it up there on the screen. It's similar to the helicopter. It's using electromagnetic sensors to measure resistivity in soil, and then using that information to estimate the suitability for recharge. And it's different than what Andy Fisher did. He was using existing information. This would be actually collecting new information, so it's much more granular, much more fine resolution. So this is great because this technology would basically offset some of the use of things like soil borings and percolation tests. We'd still do them, but we might have to do fewer of them, and we'd be able to identify the areas where we'd have the best chance of high suitability and just focus our resources only on those areas. So even within a large site where we know that there is good suitability based on Dr. Andy Fisher's work, there could be locations that are prime, and this will help us identify those. So after my presentation on the recharge, there was a member from the State Water Resources Control Board, a staff member, also on the trip, and he came up to me afterwards and said that they'd be really interested in helping fund a pilot program to use this technology in an area where we're already examining recharge and seeing if it could help us, fine-tune our projects, make them better, and how that could impact in the future if it could be used kind of around the state. So he basically has offered to help us leverage the grant funds that we have and the water demand offset funds that you have with State Water Resources Control Board funds to include this Dualium survey as part of a pilot project. And basically as part of the project we're already planning to do. So tomorrow, several staff members from Ramble, which is the Danish company that has this technology, are going to be going on a tour with myself and Shelley and Alyssa to look at the county sites as well as the sites that they spoke about earlier. And they're going to give us basically identify if this technology would be suitable at those sites. It can measure resistivity down to about 30 feet, which is about as far as we would go for any recharge projects. So that's wonderful, but it doesn't work in areas where there's a lot of power lines or things like that, because it can disrupt the waves. So some of the sites, particularly one of the county sites, I don't know if this is going to be suitable yet, but it's certainly worth a try. So we'll know a lot more after we talk to them, after they've seen the sites and given us an idea of how much it will cost and if that's in line with what the State Resources Control Board has been offering. But I think this is a really wonderful opportunity to work together, to leverage funds, and it will put us in this fantastic position to apply for implementation funding through state grants, because we would have this partnership already established that the state's already invested in, both through the county grant and through the State Water Resources Control Board. So I think it's just kind of the stars are aligning on this project, and we're really excited about it. It's a fun opportunity, and we get to use new technology that hasn't been used in the state before, so that's also got, we're very excited about that. So I think that's about it, unless you have some questions. Yeah.
So I know when we used the SqCWD, that we were looking at seawater, freshwater interface.
Yeah.
And so I'm not clear on, so what this will give us down to 30 feet. Will it give us where the water table is? Will it give us information about the geology?
It's about the geology. So it can tell us, basically, the resistivity they'll relate that to known soil around here, and it will they can basically identify where's clay, where's
Okay.
gravel, where's big cobbles and boulders, where's
Great.
tight mudstones. So it will. We'd still obviously do some soil borings, but it would really identify the areas where we want to focus that effort.
Okay, that's great.
Mhm.
Thanks. Other questions?
Yeah, is 30 feet deep enough to actually, if you had stormwater, an actual stormwater drain there, to affect an aquifer, like the aquifer levels of that stormwater were to go in there, that spot?
It depends on where you're talking about, but in the right locations, it certainly could be, especially in the areas that we're focusing on, kind of more in the aromas where it's sandier.
Right.
I think that, yes, that would be sufficient. And that's where some of the work that Andy's students, the monitoring work that they're going to be doing in the Pajaro, that will really help us kind of validate that. But
Okay.
that's the understanding right now that we're working off and that they're working off is particularly in kind of the sandier. If you can get to the sandier areas, you can get the water down. So, yeah, and we will know more once we have the results from their monitoring, but that's the idea.
Okay. Thank you so much, Sierra.
Yeah,
Your
absolutely.
So, and I know Andy's Fisher is working in the Pajaro area.
Yes.
Does he have any interest in working in the mid-county, or have you talked?
We've definitely been trying to woo him to our area for a while. He's participated in a couple of our meetings,
Okay.
and he's talked about how great our meetings were at other presentations I've seen him do. Right now, he's pretty occupied in the Pajaro. They're doing at least 3 projects down there this year. But I think ultimately, yes, he is interested in working up here. He'd certainly be very interested in this technology. He's been kept in the loop on all of the emails and the updates about the tour and about this technology. And yeah, he's engaged, and we're continuing to work with him.
Good, good.
Yeah.
I know his presentation he gave to the board a while back, he mentioned how complicated the mid-county
Yes.
was. And
Yes.
that he thought it would be really a challenge to do stormwater.
Exactly. Well, and that is where this will really help us, this technology, we hope. The idea is that this will clarify for us where the areas that are really suitable for this type of project are. Yeah.
And he may have been talking more about the Parisima, because it is
The what?
the Parisima.
Mhm.
Right.
In some of our projects, the county projects, we are looking in the Parisima. So ultimately, when we do the design plans for implementation, which we'd be seeking grant funds for, we would certainly have a large monitoring component of that to help us understand where the water is going, how much is getting there. We do have data loggers at Polo Grounds and Bromer Park, and it's showing us that the water is getting at least down to the 30 feet that the dry wells go, but from there, I don't know. Yeah.
Well, because presumably the water, there's water already flowing there, it's going somewhere.
It's going somewhere. Hopefully, it's going somewhere beneficial. If nothing else, hopefully it's helping with the saltwater lens, but ideally it's going to where we need it, where we want to get it for water supply.
And also maybe focus the water so that it doesn't evaporate or evapotranspiration.
Yeah, well, and that's the dry wells are really good at that, because you capture the water and then you get it, you capture it, you treat it, and then you kind of get it into, we have, at least at the sites that we've done, there's a detention area so that you can kind of get that full of water while it's working on recharging the wells. So you can get a large amount of water in the system to kind of capture when you have the peak flows, and then kind of allow it a little bit more time to percolate after that. And there's a number of different dry well designs, and down in the Pajaro, they're also doing just basins.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of doing the engineered dry wells, they're doing engineered basins. So there are a bunch of different design options, and that's one of the things that we'd want out of an engineer who would be working with all of us, would be to someone who is able to kind of consider the whole gamut of stormwater recharge project design.
Rochelle, Rochelle had a
Yeah.
comment.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I think what's really exciting about this is from the standpoint of my career, where I've drilled hundreds of borings, every spot is just what you have at that spot. And this really brings together, if you have a boring here and a boring there, what's happening between them and around them. And I live near the golf course, and my house, I have really sandy, great soil, and just across the street, it's all clay, and they can't grow anything. And so this is what will really help figure out where those points are. And then if you can use surface water treatment, I mean, just surface water, like a drainage basin, or if you have to go down a little bit farther.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's really exciting.
sorry, Bruce.
That's fine. Does the county do any testing of these recharge areas to see that the water quality is good that's
We-
going in?
We did on the Polo Grounds sites to make sure that the water was being treated because it's parking lot runoff over there. And we did find it to be clean during the initial round of testing. And that's something that we are obviously very aware of. We certainly don't want to be recharging contaminated water into the groundwater basin. So treatment is going to be a big component of design, and part of what would make a site suitable is that there is space. There's a number of options for that. We've done bioswales at the sites that we've already installed, but there are prefab wells, dry wells that are being installed in Arizona and Southern California, and I think just up in Sacramento recently, that have, they're designed for more urban runoff, like streets and parking lots, and they have a pre-treatment chamber and then a recharge chamber that are separated, and they've had very good results with their water quality too in areas more urbanized than ours.
Great. My question's more for maybe Taj or some, I don't know, but I was wondering what, or maybe Alyssa, did Central Water District, kind of weigh in on the Aptos High School site and let us know what they thought about the proximity?
They've indicated that they're concerned about the proximity to their well. It's also outside of our service area, and so there's some considerations there. We obviously want to work with Central Water and do the right thing, and it could be that, maybe we go elsewhere initially, and then if they can see how well that works or doesn't work, then maybe they'll come to a different conclusion.
Okay, just
Yeah.
wondered what they said. Okay, thank you.
Oh, on that too, I just want to mention that there really isn't any established setback requirements having stormwater recharge in a distance from a production well. There are some general guidelines, like Santa Clara Valley says minimum of 600 feet. And so one of the sites that we're looking at on Aptos High it's less than 600 feet, where that recharge basin is, or detention basin. But there could be other sites on Aptos High campus that are further away that could also have some potential. So we don't want to rule the site out completely. We want to investigate it and, figure out.
There's some open area nearby, further away from the road. Okay. So maybe I'll allow public,
We have a couple more.
you have a couple more slides. Okay, go
yeah.
for it.
And I want to thank Sierra for coming tonight and talking about the project. Thanks. So our proposed timeline, as mentioned, was to, if the dual M testing is feasible for the sites, we want to try and take advantage of the next time that the folks from Ramble are here, which is in early November, and to actually do the testing. Now, there's a lot of details that have to be worked out before we could actually do that. There's financial details, there's property access agreements that we would need to put in place with those property owners and get that piece of the puzzle squared away. And so if we did that in November, then we estimate that we could come back in the early winter and give you an update on that, and also share how that information is going to, I guess, how we're going to develop our on-site testing plan based on that information, where we might want to put borings, how many borings on each site, and that kind of information. And then if we moved ahead with that, then we would be coming back in spring, hopefully, with the rest of the on-site testing results and presenting that to you, as well as some recommendations about which sites we should do now, or how they should be prioritized, and getting your feedback and direction on that. So we're hoping that if we can get some sites selected by spring, then we can start developing bid documents for design and construction. So that's kind of where we're headed with our timeline. And in the event that the state funding and the grant funding that Sierra mentioned didn't cover the dual testing, whatever that ends up to be, we were thinking there's a couple options. We could prioritize the sites for testing. We do also have some money in our budget this year. I think it's $60,000 for stormwater recharge projects, so we could tap into that if it didn't adequately cover doing all the sites. And so we're looking for some feedback. If funding is limited, this is our recommended priority for doing the dual M testing. And so we just wanted to get your feedback and approval on that.
Okay. I mean, I'm pretty excited, and I think the timing is kind of good, and I appreciate all the work you've done and Sierra's done, and because we've been wanting to find a little additional supply wherever we can. So I think we got to do it in a responsible way, though. So this is what it takes. So yes, right. So is there anyone who wishes to speak to the board on this item?
Thank you, Becky Steinbrenner. Thank you for both of your presentations. I'm really excited about this too. And I want to know what the cost might be. And I've seen some of Dr. Knight's work that is very similar. So I know you just got a paid trip to Denmark. Well, I was told that Denmark paid, except for the plane tickets. That's what I was told. So that's pretty nice. But I just want to, I like to support local researchers too. And so I would like to see maybe a cost comparison with what Dr. Knight's team could do as well. Maybe she doesn't have access to this EM dual, but definitely involving her, I think, is worthwhile, because she kind of pioneered this in our area. I also have some questions about considering doing surface water recharge, as much as I'm excited about it, but doing it in the Aromas aquifer as an offset to fulfill offset requirements for customers who are in the Parisma aquifer. That's the aquifer that's really in trouble. And I think we've got to focus on getting that one healed. You're shaking your head. Go ahead, shake your head, but I'm just going to finish my comment. So I'm wondering if you've contacted or worked with Cabrillo College, because they certainly have a lot of surface runoff with all of their parking lot and rooftop. And I believe that one of the Pure Water Soquel injection sites is near Cabrillo College, and the other player that could be there is Twin Lakes Church, if there are any sites there. And I'm looking at this equipment. You're going to need a flat space, so there might be some potential there. And also the area along McGregor Drive. I don't know if that's geologically within an area that could actually push back and keep the saltwater interface back, but it's a good flat area. And I've toured the sites down in Pajaro Valley, and it takes a lot of soil excavation and management. It's not just dig a hole and put in the water. It takes a lot of management with biochar and regular cleaning and scouring and to keep it active. So I think that's the other piece we have to remember here. I'm excited about having it near the schools. I think that's really neat, because it could be an excellent teaching tool for those schools. And I guess that's my, how will you monitor if it is actually recharging the aquifer? That's the other piece. How will you really quantitatively measure success? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
The presentation was quite informative, and I was glad to hear this quote: "We don't want to recharge contaminated water into the groundwater." So I think I copied down your statement correctly, and that certainly is a key problem. And I wish there were a way to stop the contamination in the first place. For instance, I taught in Pajaro Valley schools where there's a huge amount of pesticide use, which my primary health care provider attributes to the tremors I have being exposed to all these pesticides. And I've read that the microwave radiation from wireless microwave technology has the same impact on the neurological system. Now, when I heard about the helicopter flyover and new technology and electromagnetic technology, I know that this, it may be wonderful what you can see, but the question is, what's the downside? Is I consider it, from my reading about microwave radiation and weaponry and cell phones and cell towers and Wi-Fi and satellites and all these sources, this is toxic technology. And I remember in my own experience where, well, I grew up in Southern California in Gardena. We used to go into the shoe store, and you would put your feet in this machine and look down. You could see your bones in the shoes. This was an X-ray radiation technology that was deemed dangerous later and removed. So I am very apprehensive of how exciting this technology is. There are ways to find out about things or to prevent toxicity other than increasing the poisoning. A key problem with water is that we have in the Pajaro Valley, when you look at all Santa Cruz County, I heard 80% of the water use is for agriculture, and it's the industrial model, pesticide-laden agriculture. We need to have a look at that, and I think we need a requirement for organic and ecological agriculture, which
Thank you.
can include swales as well.
Thank you.
Okay, and
I
I
just
want to
wanna-
give you a brochure here, Mobile Communications, the cause of the global disappearance of the bees. Thank you.
I just want to encourage you to go on the website for DOEM and look at the pictures where you can see that there's people with this instrument strapped over their shoulders taking the measurements. So I doubt very highly that it's dangerous, but you can make that determination for yourself.
Okay. Is there anyone else who wishes to address the board?
Yes, Gary Lindstrom, Aptos. A year, maybe 2 years ago, at an MGA meeting, I brought up the McGregor Drive possibility for reclamation of water. And I also wonder now, what about Cabrillo College? And if there's going to be a footbridge taken over the highway, which they're talking about, be a perfect place to put plumbing to send water from McGregor across the highway to any place that we needed to recharge away from the immediate coast. So that's all.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Seeing none, back to the board then. There are a couple. One was just feedback and direction. The other's a motion of whether.
Well, actually, probably-
I know. I'm just saying, just reminding us what,
Okay.
what our charge is just to give on the prioritization,
Sure.
and then also whether we want to proceed with the pilot project, and then as far as how we want to prioritize each project. So go ahead.
Oh, well, yeah, like this whole question of the stormwater, possibility of stormwater recharge has been percolating. I'm so impressed with the work that's been done and working with other agencies and staying connected to Dr. Rosemary Knight as well as Dr. Andy Fisher to make this project get to this point, but it's still looking for sites. And one thing that Andy Fisher emphasized over when he gave his talk was how complicated the Purissima aquifer was, which is what we're talking about here mostly. You know, the interface into the aromas aquifer, but mostly, you know, where we have most of our wells is where you want to recharge water into the aquifer. But so this is still at a preliminary phase, so it may be a little premature to talk about the technology. It might be appropriate to have another tour of the active recharge projects that the county has going on now. They are very illuminating. I think you'd find them all very worthwhile if you were able to visit the Brommer Street and the Deer Park. And there's some other ones up in Scotts Valley that, while they're not in our districts, they really are representative of the kinds of things you can do with innovative thinking on this topic. So I just wanted to thank you with all the work that has to be done. This is, you know, actually just providing water and customer service and all the other things that have to be done to have gotten this far on this project. It's really good. So anyway, and that was the main comment. I wanted to make sure we got out there before we voted on anything.
Yeah. Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, I'll second that. You know, there are the resources we have with Andy Fisher and Rosemary Knight. I'm glad to see that the staff is taking advantage of that. And these projects, they're both in Purissima and Aromas, correct? Or is it all Purissima?
Right now, we're proposing
Aromas.
to focus on the aromas because the
that's what I thought,
suitability
yeah.
is much better.
Right, because we don't have the complications of aquatards.
Petards
Yeah.
is the main thing.
So,
And it will also help with the seawater intrusion.
right,
Right.
in the aromas.
Right.
There's also a high predominance of creeks in part of the Purissima, and we're trying to stay away from creeks for environmental reasons. So we have Aptos Creek, Valencia Creek, Trout Gulch Creek, I believe.
Right, because we don't want to take away flow that would be in the
Yeah.
streams for the fish.
That was one of the questions I had actually, was why Deer Park was still in the highly feasible, I guess.
I think because it is in the aromas and because that area does have the high soil and subsurface suitability, but that is a potential flaw. There's also adequate space on that orchard property for swales and pre-treatment before you would install wells. So there's plenty of space.
Is that number 4 on the list?
Sure.
Might have been
It's number 6.
6, yeah.
Oh, thank you.
And then the other, it seems like it's, the timeline is very fast on this, and something that I would want to see would be some sampling from first flush in these areas. And I don't know if there are volunteer organizations that would do that, or interns, or just how to get it done.
Yeah, we talked about that
Right.
a couple days ago, and what we would need to start pulling together to make that happen, because it's going to be happening pretty soon, I would imagine.
Could
And
happen.
It
in a
could
month
happen
or
in the
two.
middle of the night,
Yeah.
it could happen on a weekend, so just trying to plan for that and identifying what we want to sample for, and
Even
where
just
we
Just
can
ponded
collect the
water in these
samples.
areas is what I think would be, just to, to see if, when water runs into these areas and it ponds up,
well,
what it has in it.
Coastal Watershed Council, I don't know what they measure when they do their first flush program at storm drains, when they have people ready to go out in the middle of the night for the first rain.
That'd be
So
fantastic.
coordinating with the volunteers somehow would be really good, even if we have
Yeah,
to-
or at least if they're not able to do that for us or in conjunction with us, maybe we could at least, share their sampling plans so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. And, take a look at what they sample for and how they sample and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Well, my backyard's one of the first flush locations, so if you want to train me and give
Okay.
me the vials, I'll do that in the middle of the night.
Right?
So we'll take a look at that,
I wouldn't mind either.
see if we can pull it together before.
Some other
flush.
groups might be really,
That's the main one that does that. They're pretty organized.
Yeah, that would give us the worst case
It's
conditions.
part of their urban watch program.
Um,
The public
one
comments over for this
Great
one.
thing about dry wells is that you can divert water. You could easily set up a program where you divert it to the storm drain during the first flush, maybe for the first year, until you can get adequate data, and then, you go from there, so.
Are there like mobile devices that could automatically do that?
The sampling?
Yeah.
I
I'm
don't think
not
so.
aware
I'll
of any.
donate
but
my property.
You would think with all of the stormwater sampling requirements, and they've been in place for
There
probably
actually
20
is
years
something,
now.
there is actually something
there are
that's
people
used
that's-
on tidal marshes where once the water gets to a certain level during a high tide where it
But out
starts
of storm
sampling.
drains, I don't know.
Well, not storm drain, but in these recharge areas, you could put that same
Yeah, because
instrument there.
where all the drains converge, at least in that one location on Los Altos,
Mhm.
that's where I live, and all of them come in my backyard.
Okay, it's good to know.
It's true.
lucky.
I jumped back up here. I could just quickly say the county does, I mean, we have staff we have our own water quality lab and we have staff that are trained, so we would certainly be happy to partner on that.
That'd be
The
great.
samples that we can run in-house, we absolutely would. We actually run the Coastal Watershed Council's samples.
You do? Okay,
Yeah,
great.
not all of them. Some of them we don't have the capabilities of, and we'd send them to Soil Control Lab. But we can work on co-staffing that. And there are automatic samplers, but they're incredibly expensive and prone to being stolen, so we don't tend to use them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So it's time to
Yeah, so,
proceed. So, I mean, we can do these one at a, there's just two motions basically, and then just any other feedback. So first was like site selection, as far as I'm fine with focusing on the phase 1 sites, and as far as that's concerned, just so we can get a start. Any other comments on that?
I agree on the numbering, except I think that Deer Park should be number 4.
Well, there might be other issues.
Yeah.
I don't know, because I mean, there's the issue of the creek is the main one for me.
Mm-hmm.
so you're talking about the
Pretty
phase
far.
1 that's completed and then came up with the 11 sites. We're talking about approval.
Of these 6 sites, I
6
think.
sites, the
How-
first 5 and then, okay, yeah.
How close is Deer Park to the creek? I thought it was pretty far.
You wanna
It's right under the highway.
It's pretty far. We
Yeah.
just received a lot of feedback from the Resource Conservation District about the problems that they've had with water rights issues and anything that goes into a blue line stream. So that's what we're concerned about
Oh,
there.
so the flow eventually gets to
Well,
the
it's just-
Yeah.
Actually, it's not that far. It's right under the highway.
No.
Yeah, so if
Yeah,
you
on the other
see
It's
that
right into
blue
Valencia.
line on top there, that's Valencia Creek.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it is pretty close.
Because I've seen where water flooded at Deer Park Shopping Center, and I happened to be down on the creek and noticed this bunch of water just flowing down there one time.
Is there
And-
a storm drain?
No, this was just a leak at the shopping center.
Yeah, there are some additional things about the site that might be challenging. Some of the other sites, the water flows in a way that would be really easy to put a project just right in the path of the runoff. This site may require a little bit more engineering to make it go where we want to go. So.
And there's also a irrigation well on this property for the orchard, so that's a consideration in terms of locating a recharge project.
So are we,
So there's two motions.
okay, but I just want to know, what do you have any idea what the funding would be required for this?
Oh, for number 3?
Yeah, for doing the whole list.
We don't have any idea yet until
Okay.
tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Don't worry about that. We won't worry about that.
And do you need us to vote on it tonight with not knowing the amount, or it can be
We're
at the
just
next
asking
meeting?
if money is limited and the quote that comes in from them won't fully cover all of the sites, we can prioritize them and maybe not do them all, or we could also come back if the cost increase is reasonable, we could come back, let you know what that is, and request permission to tap into our budget for that funding or offset fees.
But that would come back to us. This is just to say, if there's not enough money, do we do the top 3 if that's all we can afford, or something like that?
Right.
That motion 3 is just,
Right, it's not approving an
it's
amount
not
of
approving
money.
amount of money, it's just,
It's just a philosophy of,
yes.
okay.
Oh,
Well, I'm ready to make a motion.
Go for it.
So I do think that this technology and expertise is worth getting into our area. And so I'd like to approve participation in the pilot project.
Okay, so motion number 2?
Yeah.
and then I'll second
right.
that, adding that, maybe you should come back and, even if we don't end up, most likely we won't use all the information that's collected, but we might be able to use that for other projects in the future, is how well that works. And these seem to be a good cross-section
Right.
for validating the technique. So I would second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that motion carries. That's motion number 2. And then 3, the staff's recommendation as far as prioritization, and if we don't have adequate funds, do we do the top ones, the top priority ones in that group?
I would think so.
So we move to do prioritize them within the budget?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll make that motion.
Motion number 3. I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Any other? I'm stoked that we're moving along, so thank you.
Thank you for coming, too.
Yes. Yeah, thanks, Sierra, for all your work. I remember talking to you about it a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And thinking, are we ever going to get there? And we're moving ahead. So, all right. So we are now on to 6.3.
Yes, so this is a memo for awarding the project to the sole bidder for replacing the media and recoating the interiors of the reaction and filter vessels at the Estates Water Treatment Plant. This rehab hasn't been done in 31 years. ERS Industrial Services is the sole bid. That wasn't entirely surprising when these projects have gone out to bid in the past. We've either received 1 or 2 bids. It's kind of
specialized.
It's very specialized, yes. And their cost is in line with the cost that they charged for the previous 4 plants that they have done. So they've done all 4 of the plants that we've previously rehabbed. And this also includes replacing all of the filter vessel valves as well. So.
Okay. Questions?
Or no?
Is there any member of the public that has comment on this item? Okay.
I just have one question.
Yeah.
What do we know about ERS? Have we used them before, or do we?
Yeah, the ERS actually did the rehabs on all 4 of the plants we've rehabbed before. So
Okay,
they do good work.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, well, I'll move approval of all 4, and then we can do a roll call
I'll
vote.
second.
Okay, roll call vote.
Director Lather?
Yes.
Director Jaffe?
Yes.
Director Christensen? And
Yes.
President Leahy?
Yes. All right, next item is 6.4, which is...
Does that cover all 4 of them?
It did.
Okay.
All 4. So now we're going to go to item 6.4. Somebody that wishes to serve on the Groundwater Sustainability Plan Advisory Committee. It's pretty important.
No report, other than I was told that they're not entertaining alternates. So, but that doesn't mean that others could, once you decide who would represent on that committee, that others interested couldn't attend those meetings. They just wouldn't be the official member.
Okay.
So,
And I actually think that not entertaining alternates might have been more for the public members, because I could see for agencies there could be situations where, yeah.
We could address that later
Yeah.
if it comes up.
If it comes up, yeah.
okay.
Okay. So is there anyone in the public wish to speak on this item? No? So I know you were willing to serve, I heard that.
I'm willing to serve. I think
And I
this
said
is
I
really
would too.
important.
You're willing?
Michelle did.
Everybody's all willing. Well, I'm not. No, I think it's super important, but I just don't have 10 hours, an extra 10 hours a month right now.
And it's turning out that I'm not going to have an extra 10 hours either, or else I would be very interested in it.
Oh, it's one of the most important things we've done around here is to actually have a sustainability plan for our area. So I appreciate I'm on the MGA and I'll see what they come up with and be involved, but I won't be able to meet separately for a plan. So you two are both interested?
Yeah, mostly I was thinking that that I had the most time, actually. Retired person on the board.
Right.
This is, yeah,
How's your-
normally I'm very cautious with my time, but I think this is an extremely important thing, so I'd be willing to, to make time for this.
Okay. Well,
So what do we do?
we'll have to choose.
Arm wrestle.
We have 4 votes. So
Assuming that Bruce Daniels didn't want to do it.
I don't know. Don't know. I don't think so. He's not. He might not have the time right now either. I don't know. So I guess somebody can make a motion. So I appreciate you both being willing. I'm gonna just because of Bruce's experience on the MJ, I'm gonna nominate him to do it. Okay? Because I think there's a lot of negotiations that he's done on selecting members before, and a lot of understanding and his. But I'm sure you would both do a great job. But I'm going to nominate him just to put it out there. So I need a second. If
I'll
anybody-
second.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Okay.
I'm not going to vote for myself.
You aren't?
Okay, okay.
You're going to vote against yourself?
No, I'm not going to. It just seems
Okay.
strange to vote for yourself to do.
Well, I know.
Yeah.
Been there.
You won't.
Okay. Well, thank you both for being willing, and thank you for serving. And if we do have an alternate, then that would be
Well, yeah,
probably reasonable.
the main reason I was interested in is that I realized I didn't have the same background on the thing, but because I hadn't been involved from the very beginning. But I felt like we needed to expand the number of people from the board who are actually actively participating in the GSA.
Okay. Well,
So,
there will be more.
So
All right.
One possibility is for you to.
just go. I
Well,
figured
no,
I'd just go.
When the GSA is a yearly thing,
Mhm.
we representative, maybe you could be the representative to the GSA.
Right.
And it,
Right.
yeah,
That'll come up again in probably January.
yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah,
now,
that's the only, that was my major
yeah,
Right, you want to get more people
voice I
involved.
wanted.
Yeah.
I think that's a good point. So we will move on now, though. So next is written communications. So these are just written communications. Normally, We don't have a lot of discussion about them, but if the public wants to address us on this item.
I'm Tom Stumbaugh, a resident of Aptos. I've written this little thing here to supplement the letter that I sent. I'll read it. I submitted a letter to you folks on August 8 relative to what I thought might be an illegal connection to this district's system. Mr. Duncan responded on August 10, stating simply, "We have investigated and are taking appropriate action." At the board meeting of August 15, I asked Mr. Duncan about the nature of the investigation and the action being taken, and his reply was vague. I spent the remainder of my 3 minutes attempting to explain the content of my letter, after which I spoke out of turn and was told that I had the right to ask questions but no right to demand answers. Now, I thought I was doing the district a favor, and little did I know what I'd be running into, something akin to a brick wall. Now, I was not demanding anything. Mr. Duncan wrote me a second letter dated September 1, which arrived in my box on the 8th, too late for the meeting on the 5th. This letter contains some items of questionable accuracy. Mr. Duncan stated that he was aware of the situation and that investigation had begun on July 19th, taking appropriate action several weeks before my letter of August 8. He stated that the connection was legal, so it must have had a meter. So I wondered what would have been the need of further action, appropriate or otherwise. There must have been a meter for him to have said it was later removed. I saw no meter, yet a hose was connected and workmen were sprinkling for dust abatement. Mr. Duncan, if this was a legal connection and you were aware of it several weeks before my August 8 letter, why did you not simply say so in your letter of August 10th? I saw the hose
Timer
connected
off and let him finish
to
his
a
letter.
district line and workmen sprinkling with it, but I saw no meter.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments on the written communications?
I just wanted to make a comment on 7.3. Oh, you want me to do that now?
Sure.
Okay, he wrote a letter saying that the owner of property adjacent to the main lot that is in the EIR for consideration for a water plant. But my understanding is it was never his property was never really necessary for the placement of that project.
It doesn't have to be moved.
I just wanted to assure the rest of the public we weren't really needing to condemn property, or it's very premature. That letter is very premature.
Well, he's just worried about it, so
Yes, so.
that's okay. All right, yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Becky Steinbrunner. I'll just follow along in that vein, because when I saw this letter, I did talk with Mr. Doring, and I did see in the packet of the second proposed scoping for ESA that his property is included in the hatched mark area that would be affected by the proposed project there. And he told me that there have been multiple instances of someone from the district coming and telling him that they were going to take his land, and telling his employees that he's going to lose his land. I didn't say that. Those are his words. So he has instructed his employees just not to talk with anybody if anybody comes in asking about the water project. And he's really upset. So he's not interested at all in moving, and I think he said it well in his letter. You know, he's hit upon a good place, and his business is well established there. His customer base is well established there, and but I do want to point out that his property is within the hatched area in the ESA document that will be affected. So I think that's what he saw. As well as having people come in. So I want to talk with you following on Mr. Stumbaugh's comment. It is, you know, I thought I was doing you a favor too by reporting this, we'll call it questionable water service. When I saw hoses going all over the project area, and I like watching construction, and I know how it usually goes. There's usually, you know, a tank like what they have that is also leaking a lot, by the way, on Trout Gulch. But when it just didn't seem right, and I know enough about, because I am a gardener, and I put in some irrigation systems, and I know that you should have backflow. And I didn't see that. And when I reported it to Ms. Flock, I got the same response that Tom got. Thank you very much for taking appropriate action. But I still saw the hoses coming out of there, and what I saw added to the site was a tool to turn it off down deeply. And I think that's not right. And so I too shared Mr. Stumbaugh's concern and felt like I met with not gratitude for helping bring a problem to your attention at all. So when I saw the pond, that large pond along Granite Way, I reported that. I went to the district office and showed Valerie the camera, the pictures on the camera, and she said, we'll get the technician out there right away. And now Mr. Duncan's response is, oh, it's just one of those things, and they hit a fire service. But there never was a fire service there.
Thank you.
There never was one there. And they covered it all up with dirt the next day after I talked with you at the last board meeting. Thank you.
We can let that go. Thank you.
Marilyn Garrett, just in connection with what I've
This
heard.
is regarding written communication?
Yes, these two communications here. You know, you are elected officials, public officials, to act for the common good and responsible water use, and to respond to questions. And frankly, I think it's, I don't know the words, irresponsible, unprofessional, dereliction of duty not to respond to what these citizens are reporting from their observations. As an Aptos resident for 35 years, I've been observing that very Svensson Aptos Village project, and the requirements that are supposed to be followed that are violated are something that a common, you know, one home property owner would never get away with. And I'd like to see, you know, response to questions and remedies to what is taking place that is not proper, not right, not by requirements. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. There's no more comments on written communication, and there, as far as I can see, is no closed session, and meeting is adjourned until our next meeting in early October. Thank you. And then tomorrow is actually the NWRI meeting here, 10 a.m. It's a public meeting.